You are listening to 600 Second Saga. Today's feature is Compulsion by Donald Carrick. Everything she knows does not stop her hands. This is the nature of her compulsion. She knows, for instance, that the rough side of the sponge she holds is wearing extremely sparse and dull, that it will not be good for much longer, perhaps an hour at most. That she cannot place an exact time of the sponge's survival is a distressing thought, and as she feels the place between her throat and the tops of her ribs begin to grow tight, she quickly begins the ritual the post-induction physicians taught her. She flicks her tongue hard against the roof of her mouth, then against her clenched teeth to the left, then right, then the roof once again. Each strike is firm and deliberate and counted. By 333 repetitions, she has calmed herself enough to resume scrubbing. She knows that this will happen again, but this does not stop her hands. She knows that she is on the 127th floor of the housing estate, and prior to her conviction, she lived on floor 130 in flat 21 with the green door. Of course, she no longer lives on floor 130 in flat 21 with the green door. Like all those sentenced to publicly beneficial compulsion, she needs no place to eat or sleep or play. The thought of relaxation and recreation are ludicrous now, though sometimes she remembers them with something like a faded impression of fondness. She knows that she will sleep when she reaches complete physical exhaustion and performs the slow, final ritual of packing her supplies back onto her cart in the correct order, all the labels facing the right way. She knows that once a day the janitor will come past and pull up her shirt to administer the injection of vital nutrients into the clean orange plastic of the dermal port near the top of her stomach. She knows that her stomach is increasingly withdrawn with each passing day, and that soon, if she were naked, she would be able to see the crinkled outlines of the internal organs if she looked at herself in the mirror. She knows that she will never be naked again, though, as this requires time to undress, which the compulsion does not allow. And she knows there are no mirrors to clean here. She knows all of this, but this does not stop her hands. Her hands scrub back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, across the old, smooth floor, trailing soap and water that the pads on her knees and shins will dry as she shuffles further forwards along the dingy hallway. She can, of course, hear the man who is approaching her from behind, but she remains with her eyes locked on the floor in front of her. The compulsion does not allow for curiosity. When he reaches her side, the man pulls out a small but expensive portable recorder and lays it down gingerly on the floor next to her. He distends the microphone and angles it toward her before pressing record. She does not know his name, but remembers him in a fractured sort of way from the days pre-induction when she lived on floor 130 in flat 21 with the green door. His music is political and largely composed of sampled sounds remixed and reorganized into something his grandmother rolls her eyes at before she calls it music, with as much sarcasm as her cracking voice will allow. His grandmother lives on floor 130 in flat 24 with the blue door. He is sampling her hands, she realizes, after a few more minutes of scrubbing and shuffling go past. Eventually, he stops the recording and slips a pair of earphones on to listen back to the sample. She, of course, cannot look up, but is peripherally aware of his foot tapping gently, its movement in time with the scrubbing of her hands on the floor, perhaps a fraction of a beat behind. Eventually, the tapping stops, and she can hear him wrap up the earphones and place the recorder back into his pocket. "Good girl," he whispers. "Good girl." His shoes leave her periphery, and she hears them grow quieter and quieter, heading back down the hallway the way he came in the first place. She hears the sounds of her hands scrubbing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. A moment later, there comes the peculiarly distinctive sound of skin thudding against hard concrete, followed by the sound of his body crumpling to the floor. The sounds of an unconscious body, or perhaps a dead one, being turned and rummaged over by his attackers. The click of earphones bouncing against the recorder as it's transferred between the old and the new owners. Rapid shuffling of footsteps disappearing entirely into the stairwell. Some small part of her mind is suddenly and profoundly empty. No, missing. She does not know what it is. It might be an emotion or an action, some kind of response to the sounds she has just been subjected to. Something to do with the man lying on the floor, who is probably bleeding, but she cannot turn to see. But no, whatever it was is no longer here. It has been left behind in a small white room with a white door and a simple gray chair. It has been left in that room along with the other small, delicate things that once belonged to the woman who lived on floor 130 in flat 21 with the green door. Her eyes keep looking down. She shuffles forward slowly, and nothing stops her hands. They simply keep scrubbing, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This was Compulsion by Donald Carrick. Donald Carrick is a writer and public speaker from Glasgow, Scotland, and he is currently based out of the city of Edinburgh. He has previously collaborated with Max Taylor and Second Saga contributor Andrew Milne on the science fiction, short fiction collection Tales of the Verse, and has delivered several lectures for charity organization The Ragged University. You can hear him fortnightly on the film review podcast Two Friends Watch. His writing is mainly focused on the genres of science fiction and horror. His first novel, solo short fiction collection, and comic book series remain, for now, works in progress. Find links to his lecture from the Ragged University and his podcast Two Friends Watch in our show notes. Music is provided by Mads. Learn more about 600 Saga, our authors, how to submit your flash fiction, and how to support the podcast in the show notes. This has been Mariah Avix and 600 Saga.